So I started Naruto in the summer of 2012 and I have a couple of episodes left, but I'm gonna make this video right now cause I already read the last manga and I know what happens at the end. Now if you haven't watched the show or if you're planning on watching it, I highly recommend giving it a shot. I actually started watching the show after playing some game on the Wii. I don't remember the exact game, but I'll put it up on screen. But after I played this game, I wanted to know more about the story and the characters, so I started watching the show. And now that Fortnite is introducing Naruto, I feel like some people might want to know if they should watch it. And I'm here to tell you guys that you should definitely try watching it, at least until episode 19. But Naruto is essentially about a kid that wants to go from a weak delta male to a sigma alpha male, and you see everything he and his friends go through. And along the way you have some amazing villains like Pain, Itachi, and Madara. Now I won't talk about the characters in this video, but if you want me to make a tier list then make sure to let me know. But one thing that I will say about the characters though is that there are some characters from the Konoha 12 that provide absolutely nothing. There's one team in particular that does absolutely nothing, and it's Team Kurenai. Kurenai is also the worst squad leader in the entire series, but that's because she doesn't do anything at all in the entire show. But Team Kurenai has Hinata, Shino, and Kiba. Now Hinata does have some moments here and there, but Kiba and Shino do absolutely nothing. Now some of the other characters are also pretty poo, but there are others that have their own arcs that they go through that are written very well. But other than that, that's all I want to say about the characters. Now the show is also really dark, and I'd say it's the darkest show I've ever watched. A lot of people say Game of Thrones is one of the darkest shows of all time, but I'd have to disagree because I think the entire Uchiha thing is darker than anything I've seen in GOT. And don't worry, it's not a spoiler because it happens very early on in the series. Now with that being said, the show does have its issues, with the main issue being filler. Now in one of my earlier videos, I said that filler isn't a problem in shows like Naruto compared to a video game because you're actually able to skip the filler if you'd like to, and it's optional. But now that I actually think about it, it's not really true because it actually is an issue. So first of all, the filler could have been better because the majority of the filler was just snoozers. The reason why it took me almost 10 years to finish the show was because of fillers. I stopped watching during the Sora arc in Shippuden and I saw that the show was still airing, so I just gave up. There weren't any filler lists during the time that I stopped, which was 2013, because the show was still airing, so I didn't know that those episodes weren't canon. But I finished the show years later after my friend stopped me from playing Storm 4 on PS4 and after he sent me a filler list. But once I got the list, I skipped the filler arc, got reinvested into the show, and now I'm here. But the other reason why I think filler sucks is because the show doesn't air as seasons. There was a new episode every week, and I think they could have just waited so that they don't catch up to the manga. So they could have basically released the episodes as seasons, and with the extra time, they could have made some of the animations better, because the animation becomes kinda stinky, which is another one of the issues with the show. Now some of the taijutsu, so like the hand-to-hand fights, were nice, but sometimes there's just poo scenes where it's just huge blasts and destructions with like nothing going on in the animation. The movies do have good animations though, but it's pretty inconsistent in the show as a whole. Now the last issue that I want to talk about without getting into spoilers is the music. Now don't get me wrong, most of the time the music hits, but sometimes they just overplay some of the themes and it either doesn't end up hitting as hard or it just doesn't belong in the scene. I can't remember any specific scenes, but I started noticing it near the end of the show. It isn't a huge issue, but I think it was just worth mentioning. Now before I get into spoilers, I'll warn everyone to not search up anything regarding any important characters. And I think the most important character to not search up is Toby. He's the guy in the orange mask. Just searching his name up reveals who he is, and back when the episode aired, it was probably equivalent to people finding out that Darth Vader was Luke's father in episode 5 back in the 80s. Okay, so let me just clarify that. It's not the "you are my father of this generation," but it is for me, so I just wanted to make sure everything was clear. But it's a massive spoiler and I wasn't able to avoid it because everyone in my school kept talking about it. Now his identity becomes obvious near his reveal, but it'd be so much better to find out who he is without any spoilers. And also don't play any of the games before you watch the show because the games rush the story. They don't even explain half the things they need to explain, I want to say. Like for example, Pain is a character that I thought was the most generic average villain after playing the games, but after I watched his arc in the show, he became one of my favorite characters. So make sure to only play the games after you're done certain parts of the show. I'll leave a link in the description that goes in depth. But I think that's all I want to talk about without getting into spoilers. So skip to this part of the video to hear my final thoughts. Now there's a lot of things that I can talk about that I really liked, like the Pain arc for example, but in this video I just want to go over some of the issues that I had. And these issues only came up near the end of the show. So the first issue that I want to talk about is the events that happened after Obito's death. Now don't get me wrong, his death is nice, but before he leaves with Rin, he's somehow able to talk to Kakashi and give him both his Sharingans. There's no explanation as to how that happened whatsoever. But despite that, the fight was amazing, and I'm happy we got to see Obito and Kakashi's Susanoo with his capabilities. I just wish that they actually explained how it worked instead of just pulling it out of nowhere. But something else that they kinda pulled out of their ass is Hashirama's cells. I feel like they over-rely on it when it comes to explaining some things, cause for the most part, it's just there to fill in plot holes. And I think it was the worst at the end of the series when they explain how Naruto and Sasuke get their hands back. Like they didn't even try to explain cause they just made a joke about it. If there were other explanations as to how some of the things happened in the story, I think it would have been better. But anyways, the biggest issue with the series is some of the characters. Now again, I won't talk about the characters in this video because I might make a tier list, so let me know if you're interested in it. But the one character that I want to talk about in this video is the biggest issue I think most people had with the entire series, and that's Kaguya. Now when she first appeared, I was worried, but after seeing the lore behind everything and Naruto the Last, I understood what they were trying to do, and this of course was setting up Boruto. Now first of all, I think that she could have been stronger than Madara in the fight cause it doesn't seem that way. Now she can teleport people to different dimensions and everything, but when it comes to actually fighting against the two, it seemed as if Madara was stronger. If Kaguya was stronger, then I wouldn't have really had an issue with Madara going out like that. But my next issue with Kaguya is her character itself. I thought her motivations were weak, and I feel like they could have done something else instead of being a dumbed down version of all the other villains. Now, I don't know what they exactly could have done to give her better motives, but I do think that they had the opportunity to build her up earlier instead of just pulling her out of their ass. If she was just mentioned during the pain arc, I think it would have been fine. Gamamaru could have said something about how the Sage of the Six Paths used Sage Mode to defeat Kaguya, the mother of all shinobi, and I think that would have been fine. I just think it was too late to mention her when Madara was talking about her eating the forbidden fruit. So I think she was just the biggest issue with the entire series. But other than that, I think that's all to it. If you're watching the series for the first time, choose whatever language you want to watch it in. English or Japanese, cause they both sound great to me. Some people have an issue with the dub, but I don't get why, cause to me it sounds equally good. I get that other anime might have poo dubs, but for Naruto, I thought it was great, so I just ended up watching it in dubbed. Now, let's get on to the score. I think Naruto is great. Personally, it's my favorite show of all time cause I grew up with it, but I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece cause it has its issues. So if you're thinking about watching the show, I'd encourage you to watch it. I got hooked on episode 1, but some people got hooked at the end of the bridge arc on episode 19. So if you don't like the show after episode 19, then it's safe to say it's not worth watching. But that's it for this video. Make sure to comment down what you guys think and let me know if you guys want to see the tier list video by liking the video and commenting down below. Feel free to comment down any other anime suggestions cause Naruto is the only anime that I finished. I am going to be starting Attack on Titan before the final part drops, but if there are other animes that I should check out, then make sure to let me know. But anyways, make sure to subscribe as well cause it's free and you'll get to see why Spider-Man Far From Home was the worst Spider-Man movie of all time. That video will be out sometime soon. But until then, later.